Call to order the meeting. Mayor and Council, I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. If you'll rise for the opening invocation by Councilman King.
All right. You bow our heads, please. Heavenly Father, Lord Jesus, Lord, we just appreciate this day, Lord. We appreciate the opportunity to gather here. Lord, be with us tonight and guide and direct our conversations. Lord, to give us the wisdom and knowledge that we need to make the best decisions for our community, Lord. And at the end of the day, we just give you all the praise and glory that you honor. And thanks for all the great things you've done in our community and all of the great things you're going to do. We just ask all these blessings in your wonderful, glorious name. Amen.
Amen. Please remain standing for the pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May be seated. Okay, as a reminder, we do have an executive session following our regular meeting. Are there any changes to tonight's agenda?
No, sir, there are not.
Okay, you've all received the minutes from our last meeting. If there are no questions or comments, I'll accept the motion to receive the minutes.
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilman McCoy. Is there a second?
Councilman Holland, I second that motion.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, okay, it's unanimous. All right, at this time, I'm going to call up Deputy Chief Rappa to introduce our newest cadet.
Mayor, City Manager, City Council.
Good evening.
We were able to start this past couple months. I'm sure you were aware of the seasonal cadet program, where we put it out to try and get 4 seasonal cadets. Unfortunately, we ended up with just 1 at the end of the day due to training issues. We do have requirements that they have to meet per our standards and also COPT standards. Our standards, one of them was you had to be a bike officer and be certified. Our other cadet could not pass that part of it, so we were last with seasonal cadet Samuel Brumley. He is from Laurel and graduated from Del Mar High School.
Welcome aboard, man. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely.
Glad to have you, buddy. Happy to be here. Good to see you. Thank you.
Did you graduate a year ahead of him? Did you graduate from Del Mar?
Same class.
Same class.
Thank you for coming out. We appreciate it so much. Cadet got sworn in on May 15th with his family. It's a big day, and it's certainly a great opportunity for a young person who's considering going into law enforcement, but it's also a blessing to our community to have more eyes on the street helping us out and helping train up hopefully a future police officer somewhere in this state, if not Seaford. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Good to see you guys. Thank Deputy Chief. Okay, public comment. Do we have anybody here tonight for public comment?
We just have one on the list, Dan Cannon.
Mr. Cannon?
And my public comment tonight is about your intent to limit public comment. As you know, public comment in open meetings in all municipalities, including Seaford, became law just last year, June 22, after both the Delaware Senate and the House of Representatives unanimously approved the measure, unanimously. In a sense, the Delaware General Assembly rescued Seaford from being the only municipality in the state of Delaware not allowing public comment. At that time, I expressed my reservations about successful implementation of public comment in Seaford. However, for a time, reasonable accommodation and flexibility on the part of Mayor Genshaw offered promise of successful implementation. For instance, over time, citizens seeking to make public comment were not required to sign in. No time limit was imposed on speakers. Written public comments were occasionally presented by a recording secretary. Promises of immediate feedback were made to some presenters and more. However, as a friend said to me, perhaps it was almost inevitable that Mayor and City Council, which had resisted public comment so long, would eventually push back against it. Well, pushback is here tonight in the form of proposed changes in public comment, which include 1, public comment must be in person or by telephone, and 2, elimination of the option of providing a written statement in lieu of and or in addition to verbal comments. There must be offending examples which generated these proposals and likely include my written public comment made in absentia on 12/13 of last year. Also on 12/13, Representative Danny Short's written public comment was read into the public record while he was physically present. Again, on 5/9 last meeting, my written public comment was made in absentia. In my view, allowing my public comments in absentia were ethically justified due to a temporary medical incapacity, I was unable to speak, and an unforeseen personal emergency, respectively. To the best of my knowledge, there was no citation of physical infirmity or other extenuating circumstances presented by Representative Short. The proposed changes to public comment tonight would be an unfortunate reversal of the current positive and courteous practice. Legally, these proposed changes would be in conflict with the established law regarding the rights of the physically disabled.
Comment,
Yes, Jay Milligan.
Mr. Milligan?
Jay Milligan, 1 Crossgate, Seaford. I have some comments, maybe not quite as significant as that, and it really is about the same thing. I'd be interested to hear why. But one of the things, I don't think that you're really stopping public comment. I think the big thing is that, it's sent in instead of, brought before you. I can see situations where that might be prohibitive. Again, I think you mentioned somebody handicapped like that, or somebody that can't speak should have somebody here to speak for them. In my life, I've had a lot of people say things behind my back that they probably wouldn't have said to my face. And then I had a few that said it to my face, in some cases wish they hadn't have. But, I think if somebody has a public comment and they physically can make it here, they should be here instead of kind of sending it, messenger. But there are situations, I'd be interested to hear the comments tonight. I can't say I'm totally against it, but I think there's maybe some consideration on some of the way that that's put into play. I think the more comment we can get from our citizens is probably better, not that we always will agree with them, but again, I think it should be evaluated. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else here tonight for public comment?
No, not on the list.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, we're going to go ahead and close our regular meeting at 7:07 and open up the public hearing. I'll invite up our building official, Mr. Bailey.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
We have 2 items on the public hearing for this evening. Public hearing number 1 for OLL Ventures on behalf of Neighborhood Partners. They were seeking a rezoning and subdivision request of a 10-acre parcel from C2 to R3 for the development of workforce apartments on Bridgeville Highway, on the corner of Bridgeville Highway and Dutton Avenue, 331-5.00-50.05. The developer emailed last week with a request to withdraw this application. So I believe they're going to go back to the drawing board and come up with something that's more compliant with the current zoning C2. The planning and zoning did make a recommendation for denial of that application. And then the next public hearing item is amendments to Seaford Municipal Code, Division 1, C1, General Commercial Districts, Section 15-29A7 and A26, uses by right, to define permitted uses in Article 1, Section 15-7, definitions to define early childhood development and education facilities. This is the code change that we presented a couple weeks back at the meeting. It's basically the same with the one aspect change in 15-7A in the definitions, number 34. We eliminated the language to limit the capacity to more than 40 children. So it reads now as early childhood development and education facilities shall mean a facility planned to provide learning activities and care to pre-elementary age children. So that just defines it as that. There's no number limit to it. And Then we go down to the uses by right in C1, the section 15-29. We changed number 7 to expand on the medical portions in that for the uses. And then number 26, we added the early childhood development centers in that section. And this will coincide with the development plans for the Nowland Capital Shopping Center.
Okay, are there any questions from council? Are there any questions from the public? Okay. All right, we'll close our public hearing and reopen our regular meeting.
I think that's it.
There is no motion tonight, correct? All right. All right, next we'll go over new business number 1, the budget.
So good evening, council members.
Good evening.
We're here tonight to present the FY24 budget and just provide a little bit of a couple milestones related to our FY24 budget. On April 21st, 2023, the first budget draft was submitted to the City Council for their input. We did have, during the next few weeks, we had liaison budget reviews with each of the liaisons and the department directors and supervisors. So I want to thank council for all the time they spent with us in meetings, and the directors and the supervisors for all the hard work on the budget. May 2nd, we had our budget workshop number 1. May 16th, we had budget workshop number 2. And then that kind of culminates in this evening's placement on the agenda for adoption, approval, consideration. Just some overview of the budget. There are investments in reliable domestic water production with the relocation of the nylon well. There's about $2 million worth of capital expenditures in there. Council will recall the Director of Public Works dealt last year with some radium contamination, so we need to get that well, that capacity from that well replaced. Additionally, in our wastewater treatment budget, there's design funding for phase 1 of the wastewater treatment plant's headworks upgrade. We've been working on that, talking to council about that for probably about the last 5 years. We had it in our CIP. The Director of Public Works and his staff has moved that into the design phase now. The addition of personnel, equipment, and vehicles in the police department to increase citywide public safety, that was approved this last year to hire 5 additional officers, increasing our troop strength to 35. So that is in this budget as necessary. The good news in some of this budget is the city continues to see steady customer growth that contributes to increasing revenues in our enterprise fund, water, sewer, electric, even tax growth. This is due in part to consistent increases in residential housing developments, commercial redevelopment, and businesses continue to adapt and recover from the pandemic that we experienced over the last several years. Total revenue this year in FY24 is projected to be just above $45 million with internal transfers. So you can see we did a 4-year chart there. This is the largest budget that we've done. So we see continued growth. Revenue without internal transfers is $40 million, just about $41 million. Obviously, electric at $18.3 million is our largest enterprise fund. The purchase of electric and the resale to our customers is very large. The sewer fund at just above $9 million. Again, that includes a lot of capital projects this year. And then the general fund is just behind at $8.8 million. General fund revenue is down slightly, and I got to look over here, $8.8 million. When we do our budget, we include some of the capital contributions that we get. There'll be some additional slides as we progress. But that's why these numbers are somewhat inflated, because it does include some of the capital along with the other revenues, because they're coming into the city through grant revenues and other sources. General fund transfer from the electric fund, so any money that we make in our electric business goes to offset, not any money, some money goes to offset general funds, so we can fund police, we can fund some of our other pursuits. And that's up slightly this year. That's good news. It's up about $145,000 in sales projected because of some of the residential growth, some of the commercial growth that we've seen. So it's at about $3.1 million, so highest in the last 3 years. General fund transfer from the sewer fund is about $1.1 million. That's, again, the highest we've seen with the influx of revenues from the Unified Sewer District, taking in Bridgeville, Greenwood. That's been helpful for us to increase some of those revenues that we've received. Transfer from the water fund, the last few years we have not transferred any funds from that. We did, back in FY21, we did transfer $30,000. We did that, I guess I'll say this, that the decision was made there so we didn't have to increase water rates anymore. So we were able to not do that transfer. Water fund revenue is $3.9 million. Again, it includes about $2 million for some critical domestic water production work that we need. Sewer fund revenue at about $9 million. So the highest revenue figures we've had in the last few years. Electric fund revenue, again, is up at $18.35 million. That's good news that we're being able to sell additional electric. Total expenditures, obviously electric distribution is our largest with the wholesale purchase of electric through DMEC and then the resale of that, followed by police at $5.3 million, and then the rest of our expenses there, as you can see, laid out. Capital requests, this again is very high at $11.1 million, the highest capital budget the city of Seaford has ever undertaken. Just a comment about the last two bars there, a lot of those projects were funded by the ARPA funds, and those projects are taking a little bit longer than projected due to supply chain issues, due to implementation, and just our staff being able to do that. So some of those projects in the capital portion of the budget were transferred from the last year. That's why that number is high. Talk a little bit more about that. $11.1 million worth of capital is budgeted in this budget. The total capital funded with city funds is $1.6 million, and then the total capital funded with other grant funding is $7.2 million. So rough numbers, for every dollar of city funds we're spending, we're getting, $4 of grant funding to match that so that we can make these projects available to do. Budgeted property tax collection, it's about a 2% increase of $60,000, so $2.534 million. It's going in the right direction. We're seeing quite a bit of residential growth, other things being occupied, so the growth is certainly helping us increase our revenues. Realty transfer tax collection, this chart, the 4 bars to the left show actual tax collected. The bar all the way to the right is what we budgeted in our revenues in the FY24 budget. So that's what we're projecting to get is $700,000. And you'll see there we collected in FY23 $1.4 million. So there were some large commercial buildings that sold, and that was lucrative to us to be able to collect the realty transfer tax on that. Just a couple more slides. Our reserve account status, so the money we have in reserves that in case an emergency happens or we need to lean on that to balance our budget. Total reserves is just above $13 million. You can see there our Gulf Reserve, Water Reserve, Sewer Reserve, and then Electric Reserve. And then this is our general fund reserves and restricted reserve balance. We run those numbers because this is where we typically balance our budget from, through these reserve funds should we need to. Those have gone down slightly due to some economic development incentives that the council has given in the recent period, but we are maintaining ample revenue, ample funds to be able to deal with any problems that we have. So again, $13 million total, just over $13 million. This is our reserve transfer history. We do balance our budget. One aspect of that is using our reserves to balance our budget. So through the process of the several budget meetings, we reduced that number down this year to $596,000. Last year was $732,000. Just the significance of the chart here, what we're trying to show, the gold bars are what we budget, the blue bars are what we actually expend. Not every year do we expend all the monies out of our reserve account that we say we may need to. That's due to various things, projects coming in under budget, projects not being done, employees leave us. We don't have a full census of employees, a sundry of things. But that number, through the work of staff and with the council, that has been reduced from last year's budget. So that's a good trend to try to get that down. And then debt service, we'll just talk about that. Our total debt on the books currently is $6.1 million. What's budgeted in FY24 is about $600,000 worth of debt payments. We like to track it this way because that downward trend on the chart is a good thing to do. Things are getting paid off. We did provide a full debt service schedule for the council so you can see where all of our debt is, when payoffs will occur. And then charges for service. So this budget does include a 6% increase in water and 6% increase in sewer. So that monthly increase to our residents is about $1.54 for water and $3.01 for sewer, or a total monthly increase of $4.55. So we've got there what the FY24 water and sewer rates will be. We do track this number. We base one of our affordability standards is the median household income in our area. That's $55,126 annually. So when we put in the proposed water and sewer rate annually, that is a median household income comparison there as a percentage, 1.75%. So typically it's looked at as 3% is a affordability threshold. We're well below that. So our rates are generally affordable. So certainly all of staff is here. That's a quick presentation at a high level of the budget because I know council has gone through it several times. If there are any questions related to the budget, certainly staff is here. Our Director of Finance is here and can answer any questions. I would just like to, before I sit down, I'd just like to thank staff and the council for all the work that was done. It's a several-month process that can be difficult sometimes.
Yeah. Thank you. Are there any questions for the city manager or any one of our directors that are here tonight in regards to this budget? I know you've all spent a lot of time on it, but you may still have one question. Councilman Henderson?
I also would like to thank the staff and the council for the research and all the work that went into it. However, we're getting ready to vote on this, and then depending on the result of the vote, I anticipate that it'll be approved, but it'll be a big relief. And then 6 weeks will go by before the start of the fiscal year. I'm really interested in how we performed in the 2022-2023 fiscal year, because we have 6 weeks yet to go, and everybody's just going to go, woo, and we're going to look forward to 2023-24 and not really focus on how we did this year. So I'm really...
We can certainly schedule the Director of Finance to come back in August.
And I know that August
to
come
bring
in
us-
and, you got to close the books on the year, but I'm most interested in how we're performing in real time and at the end of the year. Notwithstanding all our planning for next year.
Understood. We can certainly get that on the agenda. Any other comments or questions? If not, I will accept the motion.
Councilman Holland, Mr. Mayor, I make the motion to approve the FY24 budget as presented.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Councilman McCoy seconds. Are there any questions on the motion? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Councilman Holland?
Aye.
Councilman McCoy?
Aye.
Councilman King?
Aye.
Councilman Henderson?
Aye.
Councilman Bradley?
Aye.
Okay, it passes unanimously. Thank you very much, and thanks to all that put all the effort in to make that happen. It's a lot of work, and we'll be back next year to do it again. Yeah, all right. Next, we have to change to the schedule of fees and rates.
Okay, so our building official keeps this schedule of fees and rates for us so that we can distribute this to the public. And he did update that for us. So specifically, I'll direct your attention to page 3 of 8 and kind of middle of the page there. That is the water and sewer utility rates that we just discussed. So that's the increase to the water and sewer rates. And then later in the budget, or I'm sorry, in the council meeting, you will see part of our rate modernization for our water and sewer enterprise fund is we are reducing the gallons per day that we consider an equivalent dwelling unit. Currently, and for many, many years, the equivalent dwelling unit amount, what we bill on, is 300 gallons per day. That number has come down historically with low-flow water toilets, with plumbing systems that are made of plastic versus the other materials that were used historically. So we're finding in our, in the modern plumbing system, those numbers are coming down, they're trending down. So through work with the Operations Committee, the recommendation has been made to reduce those gallons per day to 250. So a slight reduction in that, or 7,500 gallons a month that will be billed on. And certainly we can answer any questions the council might have.
All right, are there any questions in regards to the schedule of fees and rates? Councilman King?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And it's more a comment. Like I said before, I stated before, at the end of the day, no one likes to raise anything. But when we look at the cost of doing business and things continue to rise, so this adjustment is needed for the city just to break even. This adjustment isn't to generate additional income. And I just want to be real clear on that at the end of the day. I mean, we need to make this adjustment just to kind of balance that fund, balance that cost. So I just wanted to put that out there as well.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
I'll just make one statement, which
Yes, sir.
I neglected to do. This, if adopted by council tonight, the effective date on page 1 would be July 1, so it would coincide with the new budget. So these rates would not be going up today or tomorrow, but with the new budget adoption.
Right. Okay, if there's no further questions, I'll accept the motion.
All right, Mr. Mayor, Councilman King, I'll make a motion to approve the changes to the schedule of fees and rates to revise the water, sewer, utility rates, and the EDU value as presented.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilman King. Is there a second?
Councilman Holland, I second that motion.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions on the motion? If not, we'll do a roll call vote. Councilman King?
Aye.
Councilman McCoy?
Aye.
Councilman Holland?
Aye.
Councilman Henderson?
Aye.
Councilman Bradley?
Aye.
Okay, that passed unanimously. Thank you very much. All right. Next on the agenda, I'm asking to appoint Mr. Alan Quillen to our Police Chiefs Advisory Board. Mr. Quillen just went through the Citizens Academy, and like a lot of people, when you attend something like that, you get you're overwhelmed by what you learn and what really happens in your community, and you sort of get inspired to want to do more and be a part. So he approached me and wanted to be more involved with the city, and I always like to take people up when they want to volunteer to serve. So before you tonight is a request to appoint Mr. Alan Quillen to the Police Chief Advisory Board. Any questions in regards to that? If not, then I'll accept the motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to appoint Mr. Alan Quillen to the Police Chiefs Advisory Board as presented.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilman Henderson. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Mr. Bradley seconds. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. All right, next we had a request to change the name of a street that the city manager will walk you through where we are and why.
Yes, sir. And first, I'd like to introduce Miss Judy Scott, who's here, who wrote the letter that council has in their package. It's a good read, and Ms. Scott knew Dr. Betts and thought very highly of her, and she requested council consider naming the entrance to the Seaford Village Shopping Center after Ms. Betts, and she suggested maybe we consider Betts Drive. So I spoke with the mayor and the vice mayor about it. They were both in support. Did speak with our building official, because we have, all of our road names have to be submitted to the county for approval through the 911 system, so we don't have duplicate names. So there is email in there from Caleb Mayers, who responded that we could absolutely do this, but if we did it, then Betts and Biddle Eye Care would need to readdress, because you have to address off the closest roadway name. So having done addressing before, we discussed it internally, and I went and talked to Dr. DeMott and told him where we were. He also was very supportive of doing this and was on board for it, but he was concerned that because his licensing is attached to an address, he was concerned that that change could be disruptive to his business, to his patients. So we did, when we discussed it with him, we did offer him, the memorial sign. Trish did the kind of magic there for us. So what's on the screen there is what we've done before. We did it for Dr. Lynch, thank you, sir. And we've done it for some unfortunately, we've had to do it for some people that we've lost in the Iraq War. So when I spoke with Ms. Scott, I also spoke with Dr. DeMott. They were both very supportive of this. In talking through this, our suggestion, there's a picture in here of where the location would be. So we would place it on a post there where the stop sign is, going right into their facility. This would not affect their addressing. This would be a nice gesture and could be done without, running afoul of any requirements or anything like that. Ms. Scott, I hope I didn't leave anything out. Would you like to add anything, or?
I do have something I can say.
Please come on.
Well, I feel funny calling you Ms. Scott.
I know, Charles. Okay. Good evening, I'm Judy Scott. I am a lifelong Seaford resident. My Seaford High School 50th class reunion is this year, Mike. And I've been thinking about my classmate, Susan Betts. Or as Susan would say, that's Dr. Betts to you, in her humorous way. Dr. Betts and her entire family really accomplished so much in their lives, and they continue to do so. Susan dreamt of becoming an optometrist. She graduated from Seaford High School in 1973 and began her journey into higher learning. She worked hard, made sacrifices, and achieved that goal. She decided to open and locate her practice in Seaford, which was Betts Eye Care. As time evolved, another doctor joined her practice, and it became Betts & Biddle Eye Care, now located on Herring Run Road. Dr. Betts volunteered her time and expertise always to help others. She was active in the Seaford Chamber of Commerce for several years and served as president for a 2-year term. She received the Athena Award for her service to women in our community. Susan passed much too early, and we miss her very much, but her legacy lives on. Her nephew, Dr. Philip DeMott, is now an optometrist at that practice. All of us here have left some mark on Seaford, and that's a good thing. It makes us what and who we are. Susan, though, she was remarkable, and I believe as a Seafordian, she deserves recognition for her contribution to the community. Therefore, I am requesting a street be named for the Betts family, located in the vicinity of Betts & Biddle Eye Care. I appreciate your consideration and thank you for your time.
Well, you didn't act nervous, and you did a fabulous job. Many of us graduated, if not with Susan, we graduated with the Betts, and the Betts family has had an impact on this community overall. So I was thrilled to receive your letter and to talk about it. But there is cost in changing names of roads, and so this may be a great way to do it. Does anybody on council have any questions in regards to, many of you were here when we approved the memorial for Dr. Lynch, but do you have any questions in regards to this?
The only comment I'll make is just reviewing the recommended motion. It still does say Betts Drive. If we could approve in memory of Dr. Susan Betts,
Right.
I would appreciate that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, if there are no questions, I will accept a motion.
Councilman Holland, Mr. Mayor, I make the motion to approve the placement of a memorial sign at the western access road into the Seaford Village Shopping Center, such as County Tax Map 331-5.00-50.00, titled Dr. Susan Betts, as presented.
Yeah, in memory of Dr. Susan Betts. Okay, so we have a motion from Councilman Holland. Is there a second?
I'll make a second.
Okay, Councilman McCoy seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, so it's unanimous. The time frame on something like this is,
We'll have to get the sign made, so I will have to defer to our Director of Economic Development and our Public Works Director. Several weeks.
several weeks. Thank you.
Yeah. So,
Thank you. So we'll try to make some sort of notification when we're going to do that
Yep.
and celebrate that. That's a great, thank you for bringing that to us. That was, Okay, next we have the revisions to the public comment policy.
Okay, so in council's package, there is the public comment policy that was adopted in the 7th month of 2022. And there's one change here in the packages, and it's in Section 2 Procedures, Item G. And it says, public comment shall be in person or by telephone, period. That's the change. It deletes everything below that. There are no other changes to this policy, and council can certainly change that language in any way they desire.
Okay, are there any questions to the revision of the public comment policy? Councilman King?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Charles, can we dive a little bit deeper into why this is on the agenda to begin with?
I was asked to place it on the agenda.
Yeah, can we talk about why, the reasoning behind it?
I was asked to do it, and I think, I don't want to speak for anybody, I think having the person here, I think there's some concern about people just calling in from all over the country and just saying anything they want, you know. So there is some skin in the game to be able to come in to the office. Additionally, I'll say City Hall, when it was constructed, is fully handicap accessible. So people can come in here in wheelchairs. We also have our PA system has ability for people with hearing difficulties. So they have the ability to come into this facility and speak should they want to.
Yeah, I get that, but my question is, you know, I mean, if somebody wants to be anonymous, right? If somebody doesn't feel comfortable getting up in front of a podium and making a comment for whatever reason, in my opinion, this takes that away, right?
Nothing stops someone from having a surrogate speak for them here. So they can, we don't make sure it's your comments. We just ask the person to come and speak.
But that won't be any City Hall employee or like, so someone can't call in and say, hey, this is a concern or comment that I'd like to have read in front of City Council. There's no one here that would provide that service for them?
Councilman, the only concern I would have about committing to doing that, as you can see, our staff that's here running the equipment, they have to run that equipment so the greater public can see the council meeting and that minutes can be accurately recorded. So they're committed.
Is that a no?
I just said I would have those concerns. We'll do anything council wants, and we'll make employees available for anything council would like.
Sure.
Those would be my concerns we would need to address.
Right. And you know, just me, like I said, I can only speak for myself. I don't like the idea of putting hurdles or obstacles in front of someone that, you know, wants to make a comment. I think it's critical as you know, public servants, right? You know, I personally don't like the idea of adding those additional barriers to people that want to come in and have their voice heard or have somebody else echo that message for them. So I was just curious, and like I said, on why it was even on the agenda to begin with. To me, it seems like we're kind of limiting or taking away opportunity, and I'm just, me, once again, my opinion, I'm definitely not in favor of anything like this.
Okay, any other? Councilman Henderson?
I'm generally in favor of the new wording, except I would remove or by telephone. I think people should come up to this podium and speak. I agree with City Manager Anderson that this building is ADA compliant fully, and that someone that is motivated to make a comment should make the effort to appear. Also, I believe that someone with nefarious intent could call by telephone from California, a place that is not in this jurisdiction, and make a comment, and they could queue themselves up. A group with some intent could queue themselves up and make 3-minute comments telephonically from all over the country and have no connection to this community. So I believe that or by telephone should be struck.
Okay, any other questions
Just
or
one more.
comments?
Just
Councilman
one
King?
more. And I mean, just to kind of to bounce off what Vice Mayor Henderson, the comment he made. I mean, public speaking, people have a fear of that more than death. I mean, when you research the idea of getting up, that's not everyone's cup of tea. People don't feel comfortable for it. So once again, just my opinion, I don't like the opportunity of taking away a tool that someone can use to have their voice heard. That's it.
Councilman Bradley?
I would think that if somebody was concerned about getting in front of a podium, that's why we're here. They can come to us, we're easily accessible, and we can be a mouthpiece for them. I mean, I had somebody approach me this morning about something, and I discussed it.
Yeah, and each of you probably have received anonymous letters here in your mailbox from somebody that's been run off that they did not wish to come to public comment. There's access that way as well, so. Any other questions in regards to this revision? If not, I'll accept the motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the revision to the public comment policy that would require public comment to be in person, period.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilman Henderson. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Councilman McCoy's second. Any questions on the motion? If not, we'll do a roll call vote. Councilman Henderson?
Aye.
Councilman Bradley?
Aye.
Councilman Holland?
Aye.
Councilman McCoy?
Aye.
Councilman King?
Nay, no. I'm against it.
Okay, all right. So that is passed, and that'll change effective hour
Today?
today.
Yep.
Okay, very good. All right, next we have the first reading of Chapter 14 in the Water Municipal Code.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. No, Mike and I discussed it. He asked me to run through it, but he did commit to staying in case council had any questions. So as spoken, part of this change and modernization of our rates is to change the EDU value, or equivalent dwelling unit value, to 250 gallons a day. So that's what this is. The building official went through, and you'll see it redlined there. Everywhere 300 gallons per day was referenced, it's been changed. Specifically on, I'm going to call it page 1, but it's actually page 3 of 6. You'll see there where the building official has changed those square footage equivalencies so they are consistent with that number, and the EDUs, like in self-service bay, car wash with recycling water, so on and so forth. So he streamlined that. He's done a study of this user derivation system. This is how we charge our impact fees to developers that come in, and this is also how we bill flat rate customers. Most of our customers are metered, but there are a handful of commercial industrial customers that are flat rate metered. Not very many, and should a meter break out in the field, we have reverted to this flat rate billing system to try to make it fair until they can get their meter fixed, so on and so forth. So the first one is revisions to Chapter 14, I believe it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that is the water system. So that addresses all the water charges, so on and so forth. The next one is very similar. If you don't mind, I'll just go on to new business 7. But that is the sewer code, a little more lengthy, a little more detailed, but it looks very similar. We use very similar calculations. The fee is different when we do the calculation, but the EDU equivalency typically tracks water and sewer the same. The only time you'd have a derivation from that would be a business that, for an example, sent production water out in a product like paint or a food product where they bring water in for production and then they ship it out. We take that into account. Car washes, if they recycle, we give them 2 meters. So there can be differences in those numbers, but typically they track. Certainly staff is here. Our Director of Public Works is an expert on this. Our building official deals with this on a daily basis, so we can try to answer any questions council might have on either change.
Okay, any questions for the manager or any of the directors that are here? This is a first reading, so this will come back through at our next council meeting?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, old business, second reading.
All right, so our building official went through the code change in great detail in the public hearing. Council's looked at this before. This is the second reading. Council could adopt it this evening if they decide to. We've had the public hearing. The process after this, should council approve it, would be we would advertise this code change and it would become effective within 30 days after advertising. I would be remiss if I did not introduce Mr. Jim Fuquay, who's here, who assisted us in requesting and helping us with writing this code change. He's representing the developer redeveloping Nylon Capital Shopping Center. Mr. Fuquay, do you have anything to add?
Again, for the record, Jim Fuquay. No, it was a pleasure working with Charles on this to make some, really they were kind of housekeeping items more than anything else. You're all familiar with the project, and I think everyone is very pleased and excited with that happening. And we just thought there was some language in there. We wanted to make sure that some of the proposed uses in the new project would be certainly supported and permitted by the code. As you know, this is Zone C2. A whole checklist of different commercial uses are permitted. We just wanted to make sure these uses, which are going to be an integral part of the project, would clearly be permitted. And we certainly think they'll all be very beneficial. So again, thank you, Charles and the staff, for working with us.
Thank you, Mr. Fuquay.
Any questions from council? Nope. If not, I will accept the motion.
No motion.
Is it up to me? All right. Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve amendments to the Seaford Municipal Code Division 1, C1, General Commercial Districts, Section 15-29, A7, and A26, uses by right to define permitted uses, and Article 1, Section 15-7, definitions to define early childhood development and educational facilities as permitted, or as presented.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilman Henderson. Is there a second?
Councilman Holland, I second that motion.
Okay, are there any questions on the motion? If not, we'll do a roll call vote. Councilman Henderson?
Aye.
Councilman Holland?
Aye.
Councilman McCoy?
Aye.
Councilman King?
Aye.
And Councilman Bradley?
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you again. It's great to welcome you back to Seaford.
Thank you.
It's exciting.
I don't know that we've ever recorded.
It's exciting.
Okay, reminders of meetings.
Okay, I only have one. Bill Bennett, our Director of Electric, will be acting city manager from May 29th through June 4th, 2023. That's all I have, sir.
Let the harassment begin. All right, okay, all right. Committee reports, we're going to start with codes, Parks and Rec. Councilman Bradley.
Okay, I met with Charles and Mike this morning, and we discussed many things. There's a report in here. You guys are familiar with it. I'm sure you've read it. I have. I just wanted to elaborate on a couple things that were spoken about this morning. In case you're asked, there's a leak at the park fountain at Gateway Park. They've determined it's a little bit more than beyond the scope. It's kind of like a roof where you can't find a leak, and they're going to first seal it. Okay, so if anybody asks you about it, I hear sometimes this becomes a topic of discussion from the constituents. The Friday night live had approximately 100 people there. In talking to Charlie, it took a while to get everything into place where it was going to be a good mix. Okay, and I know when I was coming home at 8 o'clock, there was still a strong crowd out there. Nutter Park, there's been discussion about some outdoor lighting on the basketball court out there. I think maybe it might be due to some entrepreneurial activity after hours. And so that's in the works right now. And we had a discussion about there were 159 permits issued this year, which is within reason. And there are 1,757 rental properties in the city of Seaford. So that's all I have to report at this time. As I become a little more seasoned, add more levity to it.
Well done, well done. Councilman Henderson, Police and Fire.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have 2 complete reports from Chief Wilson and Chief Kraft. We'll start with Chief Wilson's report. Under fire statistics, there are 54 calls so far for the month of May, for an average of 2.4 calls per day. In EMS, there's 230 calls per day, or 230 calls for the month of May, and 10.4 calls average per day. Total department responses for the year 2023 is 1,912 for an average of 13.4 calls per day. You'll see the totals and subtotals for in-city and out-of-cities and assists there, and there's 1,300, well, if you do the math, it's 368 total and 1,542 total for the year for fire and EMS. Significant incidents, there was a working residential fire on Kime Circle on the 11th of May. There was a motor vehicle crash with entrapment on Sussex Highway and Cannon Road on the 13th. On the 14th, there was a motor vehicle crash with entrapment on Hearns Pond Road and Conrail Road. Apparatus, engine 87-2 is out of service for a mechanical issue. It's awaiting a part. Ladder 87 received an aerial inspection from a third party and has some minor corrections to complete before certification. Under training, the last training was held on May 17th at Station 87. It was vehicle rescue evolutions, and Station 71 also participated. The next training will be June 7th, and that topic will be announced in the future. In emergency medical services, the ambulance specification bids are back and are currently being reviewed by the committee to ensure the bids met specifications. Testing for the new firefighter EMT candidate is on Tuesday. They still have 3 openings available. The couple of news and events significant. The pardon me. Chief Wilson attended the Congressional Fire Services meeting in Washington, D.C. From the 21st to today. And the Seaford Fire Department was awarded $75,000 from Senator Richardson and Representative Short for the purchase of a second command vehicle. Moving on to the police department, Chief Kraft reports, as he always does, with a look-back period going back to 2019 and 2023 year-to-date totals, along with their subdivisions. Of note, there have been 54 burglaries and 29 theft from vehicles to date. Under all crimes, you'll see the distribution of all the crimes, along with a 77% clearance rate, which has gone down due to some pending active cases and active investigations that have not been cleared yet. Also, there's some additional crime below in the charts, which if you were to blow them up, you would be able to see the distribution, the frequency of, and the times of days that these crimes are occurring. There were a total of 28 complaints consisting of assault, aggravated assault, burglary, fraud, larceny, stalking, strong arm robbery, vehicle theft, and weapons. And you'll see the numbers there for a 36% clearance rate. You'll see that most of these 15 of them are pending active, and that's why you see the relatively low 36% clearance rate, because you have so many active investigations. Under drug crimes, there are 30 drug complaints with distribution there. There was one overdose reported, which happened at Stony Brook's parking lot. My understanding is that it was not a resident. It was just someone who pulled into the lot and overdosed there. And I don't have any knowledge of the status, but that was the one call that was encountered by the police department. That does not include any calls that were encountered by EMS. So just be aware that there may have been other overdoses in the city that EMS responded to. Under traffic, there were 253 total traffic contacts with 35 citations and 3 warnings, 2 DUIs, 1 alcohol, and 1 drug-related, and there were 19 crashes, with 12 of them being reportable. One thing the chief did note yesterday was that although there was 1 pedestrian accident, that was a non-injury accident, and even though we still have a relatively high number of crashes, the hit and runs are lower, and which is encouraging, because those investigations can get closed out. A number of significant events. The one I will note is on May 10th, Seaford PD was dispatched to the area of Atlanta Road and Tull Drive for a report of shots fired. The reporting person reported hearing 6 shots fired. The officers checked the area with negative results. They didn't find any bullet holes anywhere. They didn't find any casings. So they're not really sure that there was really firearms, or whether it was something else, or maybe we had some really neat people who picked up their casings. There's other reports here, and these are the most significant that the chief had to report, and you can go through them under administration. The biggest one that I'll note here is that on the 19th of May, there was a meeting at Bel Air regarding parking and various violations with the chief, city manager, the mayor, and myself, and they did not have any events to report. The spring shoot was concluded on the 19th of May, where all sworn members did their annual training shooting. And as you met this evening, the cadet completed his training at Rehoboth Beach Police Department, and he continues training here, and you met Cadet Brumley this evening, and all reports are that he's doing really well, and he exceeded expectations in his training. So we're looking forward to interacting with him on the street, on the beat.
Yep.
So that concludes my report. Thanks.
Thank you very much. All right, next we have Administration IT, Councilman Holland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll give you a summary of my report. We attended a meeting with Help Initiative regarding another park lighting project, and they met with residents of Bel Air regarding safety issues. And the presentation was given to Historical Society with the mayor and Tricia present. In IT, they are working with Stellar Tower to redo terminations at the top of the fire department tower. Administration are busily going through negotiations in the process with electrical department and IBEW, along with police department and Teamsters. And all the work is routine. That concludes my report.
Thank you, sir. Next, Councilman McCoy, Electric.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Since last report, the crew helped with cleanup week, 2 people every day. They moved the parklet for the art gallery
and they moved Parklet again to High Street for Friday Night Live. They worked on Muirfield 1, Phase 3, pulling in the primary wire and setting the transformers. Our director had his standard director's meeting, council liaison meeting, and he presented the bids for transformers to the council, as well as working on the FY24 budget. Over the next few weeks, they're going to continue working in Bel Air single-family residence, setting a new pole on Bridgeville Highway near my eye doctor for a riser pole, and continue changing the lights on Sussex Highway to LED. Mr. Mayor, that's been my report. It's been submitted in its entirety.
All right, thank you. Councilman King, wastewater treatment and public works.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The report has been submitted in its entirety. I'm just going to hit some highlights from each department. I'll start with the Public Works Department. Cleanup Week has officially concluded for the 2023 year. It was completed on May 15th. A huge thank you to everyone involved. This is a big undertaking for the city. There was around 200 tons of trash removed from our cities. So to put that in perspective, a fully loaded school bus weighs around 12 to 15 tons. So that means 13 to 16 school buses, or approximately the weight of 33 elephants, or close to the weight of the Statue of Liberty before it was mounted, removed from our city. So once again, just a big thank you to everyone involved in that. A lot of trash. Striping was installed at the Jay's Nest and 106 Spring Street parking lots. Paving was also completed on Allen Street. The team was extremely busy getting caught up on leaf and limbs now that Cleanup Week is over. The director has focused a lot of effort in preparation for the recent budget and budget meetings. I truly appreciate the time and energy that goes into this. So thank you to Burley and his team. Jumping over to the wastewater treatment facility, all staff participated in Cleanup Week. Once again, it's truly a citywide effort and is very much appreciated. Repairs were made to the loader hydraulic hose and leaking tire seal. Repaired a leak in a non-potable water system and installed new contactor and OL device on primary waste pump number 1. One person is on vacation this week. Some of the projects that are going to be happening over the next few weeks, there's a new water service going in on 411 Shipley Street. They're inserting 2 valves in preparation to replace the hydrant on Shipley Street, painting curbs on Hall Street, continue to work on water meter issues, repair cleanouts on smoke testing list, keep the plant up and running with 0 violations. And Mr. Mayor, before I conclude my report also too, this week is National Public Works Week. We cannot thank our Public Work Department enough for their hard work and dedication and everything that goes into making our city successful. It is truly an honor and privilege to be the liaison to this department. We have an incredible group serving our community, and thank you. And with that, Mr. Mayor, that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Burley should probably stand up and take a bow or something.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Burley sent me that and asked me to edit.
I was going to say. Did you say it's Director Mears Week? Yes,
Exactly.
okay. No, we do appreciate that department. We really do. And I also want to say thank you to Mrs. Ayers and St. John's Preschool for coming and blessing our steps and reminding us why Memorial Day is important and kicking off that celebration. That's always a really cute and special event to start us off. So with that, I will accept the motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Motion from Councilman McCoy. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion, Mr. Mayor.
All in seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, thank you. It's unanimous.
Statue of Liberty.